Good evening, dear students. I am Rajesh and you are watching Learning SS with Rajesh YouTube channel. Dear student, as you know that we have started revising objective type questions for revision of history ninth class CBSE. So today we are going to revise lesson number 2 of history. The name of lesson is Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. So let's start our today's work by not wasting the time. So question number 1 for today is, what do you mean by suffragette movement? You learned in the 6th class that suffrage movement was started to get right to vote by the people in Europe and America also. So you hear the question again. What do you mean by suffragette movement? A movement to give women the right to vote. And that movement was called as suffragette movement. And the next question, who was Giuseppe Mazzini? You learned that in European countries, people are revolting against the monarchy system, and that the monarchy system, people who revolted known as revolutionary, and the same type of revolutionary was Giuseppe Mazzini, and he belonged to Italy and named the capital of Italy. Rome is the capital of Italy, you know very well. And the next question is, what do you mean by capitalism? In the lesson you learned that number of people were against capitalism. So first you have to know about capitalism. A society where capitalist means rich people run the economy for their profit, and where the people or rich people run the economy for their profit is known as capitalism, as I give you example while reading the lesson. And next is, name the leaders who believed in cooperative society. Name the leaders, or you can say that name the people who believed in cooperative society. You learned that Robert Owen, an English manufacturer, and next Louis Blanc. These were the main leaders or people who believed in cooperative society. You know that in cooperative society people will work with the corporation, and that after that gaining the profit, and they can divide the profit equally. It means they can promote the socialism through the cooperative society. And next is, name the cooperative community formed by Louis Blanc. You learned in the lesson that Louis Blanc formed a New Harmony in Indiana, USA, a cooperative society for the benefit of workers. And next is, who was Karl Marx. You learned in the lesson that Karl Marx was a philosopher that was against capitalist society. And what did Karl Marx oppose? He opposed the capitalist society, as I told you now. I hope you learned all the 8 questions now. Now the 9th question is from lesson number 2. What was Second International? You learned that when there is a spread of socialism in Europe, people and the worker or the socialist or the worker started making their international body, and that international body was known as Second International, an international body of socialists. Where was the Socialist Democratic Party formed to promote socialism? You learned that in Germany, Social Democratic Party was formed to promote socialism, and Berlin is the capital of Germany, you know. And next is, name the party formed in France to promote socialism. Labour Party was formed in France in 1905. You have to learn that point also. In 1905, there can be another question in exam, when was Labour Party formed in France? You can write 1905 is the answer. Name the central powers of the First World War. You learned that the First World War had an effect on Russian Revolution, or means the Russian Empire. You learned that the First World War was fought between the Allied and the Central Power between 1914 to 1918. So you know that Germany, Austria, Hungary, and later on Turkey joined the Central Power. So you can write that these were the central powers of the First World War. And the next, name the allied powers of the First World War. You know that England, France and Russia were the allied powers of the First World War. It's a very, very important question for exam point of view. And the next is, when was Socialist Revolutionary Party formed in Russia? You learned that to promote socialism, a party was formed in Russia, and the name of that party was Social Revolutionary Party, and that was formed in 1900. And next is, you learned that Social Revolutionary Party was divided into two parts, and that two parts were Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. And you know that the leader of Bolsheviks means the large number of people in that party were known as Bolsheviks, and the minor people or minor community in that party were known as Mensheviks. And the leader of Bolshevik was Vladimir Lenin. You learned in the lesson, Vladimir Lenin was the leader of Bolsheviks. And the next question is, who was the leader of workers during Bloody Sunday incident in Russia? You learned that in 1905 there is a Bloody Sunday incident where 300 workers were killed by the troops. And Father Gapon was the leader of workers in Russia during that Bloody Sunday incident. I hope you are learning all the questions easily. And now the next question of today is, what was the period? Here is was written. What was the period of First World War? I told you earlier now that 1914 to 1918 was the period of First World War. And next is, what was Duma? You learned that Duma was the parliament of Russia that was dismissed several times by Tsar Nicholas II. And what was April Thesis? You learned that April Thesis, after Feb Revolution in Russia, there were some changes or there were some demand by Vladimir Lenin, and he demanded for three demands, or he required three demands, and that three demands were known as April Thesis, you know very well. And next is, name the capital of Russia. You know Moscow is the capital of Russia. And next is, what do you mean by censorship? You learned that after the Feb Revolution, there was a censorship started by Vladimir Lenin in Russia. You know that censorship means the control of government on media is known as censorship. But what was the period of civil war? You learned that there was a civil war when, after October Revolution, Vladimir Lenin started dividing the equal distribution of land among the people, among the farmers, and that's why the reason of civil war in Russia. And what was the period of civil war in Russia? You can write that 1918 to 1920 is the period of civil war. And I also told you what was the reason of that civil war in Russia. When was first 5-year plan launched in Russia? You learned that to promote the economy of the country, Bolsheviks, or means the socialist in the leadership of Vladimir Lenin, started making 5-year plan to promote the Russian economy. And you learned that there 1927 to 1932 the first 5-year plan was launched in Russia. And next is, when was collectivization started in Russia? In the second last point, you learned in the lesson that Stalin, after the death of Vladimir Lenin, Stalin was the leader of that socialist party in Russia, and he started collectivization to control the prices of food grains. He started collectivization, means collective, started or compelled the farmer to grow crops on a collective fields and to distribute the profits after that. It was known as collectivization. And when was collectivization started by Stalin? You can write that in 1929. And the next question of today is, what incident occurred in Russia during 1930 to 1933? And you learned that after the collectivization started by Stalin, it was not fruitful for the farmers and the economy of Russia. In between 1930 to 1933, there were lot of famines during that period in Russia, and you learned that 4 million people were died during that famines. And the last one major point of today is, for your revision purpose, name any 2 countries involved in USSR. You learned that there were many countries involved in that Russian Empire, and you can write like Belarus, Ukraine, etc. I hope you learned all the points easily, and if you are new on my YouTube channel, please subscribe the channel and like and share also. Thank you and have a nice evening and all the best for your exam.